Hello and good evening. I welcome you all to the monthly small case webinar series. I am Sudhir Verma. I will be the host for today. And today in the small case manager series, we are going to have a chat with Green Portfolio. From a green portfolio side, we have a complete team who are going to basically talk about what is the green portfolio, what all their small cases and all. However, to mention some of the few name, so Divam Sharma is a co-founder of Green Portfolio. He is also a chartered accountant and holds the MBA degree from ISB Hyderabad. He has over a 15 years experience in investment management and stock market. And today he is going to talk about how to win in how you can how you can decide your winning strategy in volatile market while there is a upcoming global and sectoral opportunities. Now over to you, Divam.
Thank you so much, Sudhir. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. As pointed out by Sudhir, it's very kind of him. As pointed out, we are going to talk about the winning in volatile markets and upcoming global and sectoral opportunities that India present as an investment class in equities. So let's begin with today's table of contents of what we are going to talk about. So initially, we are going to talk about the current market scenario. Then we are going to talk about the post-COVID economic opportunities and how India is becoming a more resilient economy. Why is our economy expected to thrive? Then we'll shift focus to the world economies and compare India with the likes of China and US. Then we are going to Sriram is going to talk about some sectoral opportunities that where we are invested in, and then we'll have a Q&A session. So to begin with, let us talk about a very interesting fact. So this is an MSCI index, MSCI India, which is brought to us by eSpring. Over here, we can see that the corporate profits as a percentage of GDP, which had peaked in 2008, had started to fall over the last post 2008, almost a decade. It fell and then it bottomed and then it stabilized and started going up. So, as we can see, the corporate profits as a percentage to GDP has started to rise, and they are further projected to rise from here. Another interesting fact: GDP Outlook. So, as per Bloomberg Economics and various estimates, the GDP, which bottomed with the COVID wave that happened in 2020, and the second wave that happened in 2021, the GDP is poised to increase going forward and estimated to cross even 8.5% and 9% growth estimates, and would stabilize at around 8% going forward till 2030. Now, considering that India is a very large economy, this kind of a growth rate, if it sustains for the next decade, we are going to achieve a lot of positive targets, which we are going to talk about going forward. What will contribute to this factor is the total factor productivity, which is going to be a major part in this overall piece. As well as if we can see the post the 2020, the labor will also be a contributing factor to it, right? So let us also talk about the GDP growth on the trend that has happened over the years. So pre-COVID, the last time we saw a negative growth in the GDP was in 1980s, which was 4 decades ago. Now in 2020, because of the lockdowns and other things that happened, the GDP went into a negative trajectory. But before that, if you can see, there has been a consistent growth in the GDP of the country, and we were one of the fastest growing large economies of the world. And as per recent studies by a lot of rating agencies, India is going to grow further as one of the again as one of the highest performing, highest growing large economies of the world going forward. Another interesting fact, so as we know that COVID restrictions, wave 2, wave 3, everybody is talking about wave 3 now. And so even in US, we have seen a lot of case upsurge where the people who are not vaccinated are facing COVID, and there are challenges again in a lot of large economies. What I wanted to bring forward was that the COVID vaccination in India has really done very well, right? So over the last few days, in particular, we have crossed 1 crore of vaccination every day, and even today, there's a target of 2 crores vaccine today, being birthday of Mr. Modi, and the target that the various departments have taken. So as much as fastly as we can vaccinate ourselves, the better, and the faster we'll get out of this, and start the economy again, bring it back and grow it, and capitalize on the opportunity available in front of us. So our vaccination rate, considering such a large economy, is one of the highest in the world. Now let us talk about the GST collections. So GST, again, if you can see, in April 2018, we had seen 1 lakh crores of GST collection, and then that was stable, and then that went down in 2020, and then that started increasing again. Second wave came, it slightly went down, but again it started to rise. So what is anticipated is that GST growth is going to continue. We are also seeing a robust numbers that are being declared by a lot of our portfolio companies, and we anticipate that going forward, this GST collection, we are going to cross a 1.5 lakh crores target of monthly collection very soon. Another interesting factor which could be of consideration is the power demand. So power demand again went down, as we can see with COVID wave, and then started going up. Even last month, if you can see, so even July and August 2021 were one of the highest months where the power demand as well as power supply was one of the highest in any month in the history. Now let us talk about the Google Mobility Index. Now this also tells us about how the mobility is happening, whether the things are opening up. So again, this is again showing a positive indication, where we can see that the grocery and pharmacy, there is an uptick post the second post May drop down, April and May drop down, where the second wave happened. And all the activities that post the fall, all the activities have started to move up. So Google Mobility Index in itself is again pointing a positive trend. As we can see, most of the states of the country are still like not that are not showing that high numbers in terms of COVID cases on a daily basis. Also showing a positive trend, wherein the unemployment ratio, which went up in the COVID wave, it substantially came down again and normalized. Likewise, if you look at the rural demand which went down with the COVID is again showing positive signs. If you look at current account deficit, India over a long-term trend has been reducing its current account deficit, and we have stabilized. Although there could be some short-term blip, but we have stabilized at a very so we have stabilized around 4% kind of a current account deficit, and that is a decent trend. If you look at the liquidity again, so RBI, as we have all witnessed, that has been very accommodative in its stance when it came to providing support to the ones who faced challenges in COVID. So the liquidity again has been on a positive side because of the accommodative stance by the RBI. Again, so business confidence index has risen to an all-time high back from the COVID wave 1 and 2. So, a JP Morgan Chase study tells us that India is going to be one of the biggest contributors to middle class in the coming decade, which is 2030, in this decade, which is 2020 to 2030. So, as we all understand, where if a middle class population grows, it is a very aspirational class, and the overall consumption is driven by middle class, right? So if even if we consume that much worth of goods and services as a middle class, as a growing middle class economy, we can be sustaining in ourselves, right? So let us also talk about now. Let us talk about some other growth levers. I wanted to show you how China was poised and how US was poised in 2007. There are a lot of similarities in what China was in 2007, and what India is today. So if you if you look at the great the Asian financial crisis of 1997 and the global financial crisis of 2008. So China had spent around $200 billion worth of money when the Asian financial crisis happened in its infrastructure. In 2007, China invested around $750 billion in its infrastructure, and post that, rest is history. China witnessed a huge growth in its manufacturing post its such a big infrastructure spending, because it connected all the roads, all the factories to the ports, and that resulted in a lot of capex happening, a lot of factories getting developed, and China became a factory of the world. So likewise, India is standing at a similar position where over as we know, recently the government and PM Modi ji announced on 15th August that India is going to spend around $1.3 trillion on its infrastructure going forward. Also, what we have witnessed over the last few years has been that the road construction has been continuously moving up. If you can see the road construction, it is currently around 38 kilometers per day. And our road minister, Mr. Nitin Gadkari, has been targeting around 100 kilometers worth of road construction every day. So, considering such aggressive targets on infrastructure, India is also witnessing a lot of capex that is coming up through this initiative, infrastructure initiative, as well as other initiatives which we are going to talk about, like the production linked incentive. So we can also see that there are a lot of roads that are going to complete in the coming years, be it the Delhi Mumbai corridor, which is a very aggressive corridor to connect Delhi and Mumbai. Likewise, many other corridors like Ahmedabad, Dholera, uh, like a 600 kilometers Delhi, Amritsar, Katra. So all these roads are going to connect various cities and geographies across the country, which will be a positive. Also, India also has a similarity to the US. So, what US was in 1960s. Now since we have talked about what China was in 2007, India is opening up that opportunity, and that infrastructure spending is started to happen. We also talk about how India is similar to US of 1960s. Now, India is a very young population with a median age of around 30. 63% of the population is in the working age, with 54% of the population less than 25 years of age. Now they are the contributors. They are going to be the contributors for the country going forward. Same is the case with US in 1960s, when 51% of the population was below 25 years of age. Now, population in Japan, China, US, Europe, they're all aging. If you look at China, they are around 40 years of median age. Japan is again 45, 50 years of median age. Europe, many countries are even above 50 years of median age. So all these countries or the large developed economies are aging, and the population which can work and which can be efficient, India represents that opportunity. So, with the aging population, also there's a challenge of upskilling the population, which these large economies are facing. Now, India, if you look at this chart, India of today and US of 1960s, it's almost a similar kind of age demographics which I talked about, right? So now shifting focus to China. Again, China. So what China did in 2018 was they decided that now, hey, now we have done enough of manufacturing and we are very self-sufficient and we want to become a service economy in the likes of USA. Now, China, from a investment-driven model, decided that it will go to a consumption and services-driven model. Then, China earlier had a young population. Now it has had an aging population. The traditional manufacturing, which was a part of China's growth policy, now they have shifted their focus towards technology and AI. And they have shifted from capitalism based economy to a common prosperity economy. As we can all see that recently they have taken some hard stands on edutech companies, on wealthy incumbents of the country. So China has taken want to do welfare of their own people. They want to shift from manufacturing, and this void which is created because of the shift in focus of from manufacturing by China. That void is India is creating an opportunity because of this China's stance, right? Because India, the demographics are exactly fitting in. Also, if you look at with the COVID, a lot of countries of the globe, large countries have been wanting to shift or diversify their manufacturing from China, and China plus one was the term coined for this kind of a shift. And this shift is creating a lot of opportunities for manufacturing in India and growth of Indian economy. Again, another factor which could be of consideration in this thesis of ours is that in this chart. So the India, the percentage of contribution of exports to the world versus the percentage of working age population that India presents, there's a huge gap. So now this is the highest difference amongst the all the competing economies that India have, right? So India is one of the most fascinating kind of a proposition from that aspect, that we have more of working age population, but our contribution to the world exports is very less. So, so this coupled with a lot of other factors that are coming up, like the PLI, etc., are going to create a lot of uptick in the manufacturing in the coming years. So PLI, what is a PLI? Production linked incentive scheme, where India is targeting around 24 sectors, 24 champion sectors, where India has a know-how, has been manufacturing, exporting to the world, manufacturing for consumption, and India can scale up its operations and manufacturing to export to the world. So government is for the capex that these companies or these sector companies which represent this sector do in under this scheme and get this license, the government will be incentivizing 4 to 6% of the gross value added by these companies over what they have been doing currently, right? So the difference in India and China is the prices. Since China operates in at scale, the manufacturing that they do it at way cheaper, and our manufacturers are not able to match those prices, right? Since the government is incentivizing doing capex for these entities, and whatever extra these entities manufacture, government is going to pay these companies for the next 4 to 5 years. Now this will make India more efficient. They can scale up, and they can match the scale of China and become self-sufficient, right? So even the government started with a few sectors like mobile phone manufacturing, where a lot of companies, around 16 companies, committed 11.5 lakh crores worth of manufacturing in the coming 5 years. Also, government went on with announcing PLI for pharma sector, where 230 or almost every large pharma sector company uh, participated in the PLI license bid. So likewise, a lot of other sectors, be it textile, be it defense, be it solar, a lot of other such sectors have been worked upon by the government, where they'll be incentivizing these companies to manufacture in India, which again creates a lot of opportunities for India, not only to take over the imports of a lot of these sectors, but also export to the rest of the world. So this is again a Bloomberg estimate, which says that over the next 3 to 4 years, India's GDP growth, a major part of that growth will be contributed by the PLI scheme and by the tax reforms that the government has been doing over the last few years. Right. So another important factor, so whatever said and done, if you have a policy that is favoring your economy, you also have to have a capital that to support that kind of a manufacturing or capex. So FDI in India again has been showing a very robust trend over the last few years. Uh, if you see even in the COVID period, FDI in India was positive versus a negative FDI in many parts of the world. Right, so India was one of the highest receivers of FDI across the globe after China. Now, this is again interesting, as per a recent study, India is the second most favored manufacturing country in the world. Uh, as India has been focusing, as we all know, that India has been focusing a lot on its ease of doing business rankings, and even the states have been competing amongst themselves to gain more traction in terms of investments into their areas. So now this is a very interesting trend which is coming out. Even today, we see that there's almost 14 to 15 billion dollars worth of FDI that is in pipeline. Now, we talked about uh, the similarities between India and China of the past, India and US of the past. We talked about the positivities that happened in terms of trends that we see, be it Google Mobility Index, be it power consumption. We also talked about FDI, how is it shaping up, and it is again showing a positive trend, and government supporting through its incentive plans. Now, another thing that is coming up, and we wanted to touch upon, was the participation of retail investors in the Indian markets. Now, if we look at the market cap of NAC, which is of NSE listed companies, which is $3.1 trillion in cumulative. And we talk about only three companies in US, be it Microsoft, Google, and Apple. They are almost more than double the market cap of all NEC companies, which is $6.5 trillion. The Indian participation in stock markets has been 6% versus the US participation of almost 55%. Now capital markets play a very vital role in development of the economy. And increased participation in capital markets through saving, channelizing the savings, creates again a good impetus to for the economy to grow. So again, this is has been a laggard in the past, but again we have seen green shoots over here, so we wanted to talk about it. Population in equities in US versus India, as you can see, in US there's as a percentage of the population, there's a huge participation. In India, you can say there's a very meager participation. Likewise, if you see in Singapore, 52% participation. In UK, there's 33% participation. Now, what we wanted to touch upon was that despite so many events that happened, so many negative events that have happened in the past, the Nifty and Sensex have continued to grow at a good CAGR over the last few years. If you talk about Sensex, it has grown at 14 to 15% CAGR over the last 40 years. Now, this is despite the various scams, be it Harshad Mehta scams, Asian financial crisis. subprime crisis, European crisis, global sell-off, COVID outbreak. Now the markets have continued to rise despite all these events that have happened in the past. So so considering all these opportunities, one great thing that has happened over the last 1.5 years is that the explosive growth in participation of retail investors in India. As we have seen, over 1 crore demat accounts getting opened, uh, companies and brokers, online brokers in particular, like angel broking, which have done exceedingly well in reaching out to most of these investors over the last many years. They have shown tremendous growth and increased participation of investors through their technology, and this participation creates again will increase the value of capital markets and again help the economy going forward. So let us talk about the screening process that Green Portfolio follows. As you know, that we have two small case offerings through Angel One, which are high quality, right price, and small cap compounders. So Green Portfolio invest in so we believe in wealth creation through long term investing, and we are value plus growth kind of investors where we do a very detailed fundamental study. We keep on doing that detailed fundamental study. As you know, we are also a SEBI registered PMS, and we are one of the better performing PMSs in the country, managing an AUM and AUA of over 270 crores. We lay a lot of emphasis on the corporate governance of the company. So we look at the qualitative and quantitative factors while selecting a company. A qualitative factor could be a factor like the growth in the company that has happened in the past, the operating profit margin. It should be at least double digit. The debt to equity, like a lot of quantitative factors as well as the qualitative factors. We do a lot of industry analysis of what is the company poised to do in the coming years. What are the developments in the R&D? What new products are the company launching? How much of an emphasis is the company laying on the product research and development, on bringing customer aware, on making customer aware, or customer service. And we also look at the valuations of the company. So it's a mix of qualitative and quantitative factors. We do a screener process where we look at all the companies in the index, or listed in the on Nifty and Sensex, and then we screen them basis various parameters. Then we do a deep dive. We look at annual reports. We look at the trends that of management discussions. We look at what management have said in the past, what they have delivered over the last years, and what are they doing to further improve their performance in the coming years. So what has been there in the financials is already pricing, but we also try to look at the deep dive on the growth that is projected through the management efforts and the company efforts, whether it is more leverage or less leverage. So we keep on creating research reports on a quarterly basis for the companies we cover in these portfolios. So as you can see, we look at whether they are in sync with the tax rates that the company is paying, and whether they're in sync with the tax rates prescribed by the government, or so we look at a lot of see whether the management is good, or the company is poised to do good. So now, quickly, we wanted to cover that our wanted to keep doing SIP and keep doing it for a wealth creation process. And we are investing for wealth creation, not for income generation. So you should have a good long term horizon. If you see correctly, keep doing SIPs. You look at so these volatilities in the market that present opportunities, and they try to take out the weak hands from the market. So whenever there is volatility, you have to stay strong and you have to keep doing SIPs. Our sectoral allocation again is something which is very diversified. As you can see, we have invested in chemicals, pharma, power, FMCG, automobile, IT, textile, all sectors which are going to do good in the coming years. We have a good diversification towards those. Now, Sriram is going to talk about some of the sectoral bets that we are.
Yes. Thank you very much, Divam. Like mentioned, firstly, it was. I understand that most of the audience want to hear our webinar in Hindi, but the current presentation wasn't set up in such a way. So what we can do is that the questions that you will be sending us, we will try to answer them in Hindi, and we will answer them in Hindi. Okay, and we Divam mentioned the top sectors that we are invested in: pharmaceuticals, chemicals, infra and power, as well as textiles. And I'll be running you through some of the top sectors and explaining why we are invested in this. Firstly, if you look at infra and power, Divam, can you go to the next slide? If you look, as Divam discussed, the infra development is gathering pace in India, and the government has recognized the need for exports, because if when the logistics of a country is it's really good in terms of the road network, in terms of the railway network, and as well as the shipping logistics, then we are essentially inviting FDIs to invest in our country, start manufacturing, and export goods. And that's what will drive industrial output. That's what will drive manufacturing growth. And when this manufacturing growth takes place, if you look at the previous slide, the national infrastructure pipeline, government will be spending in tremendous amount, unprecedented amount, the amount that we haven't seen before. And if you look, a larger chunk is going to the railways as well as the road, and this will continue to do so. Now, if you go to the next slide, and just to expand on that, as the construction takes place, so will the demand for steel, so will the demand for cements, ash, chemicals gain momentum. Now, if we look at this chart here, this is the affordability in housing sector. It is the best it has been in nearly 2.5 decades. And housing, since the COVID crisis, the real estate has been quite stubborn. But now, since the affordability rate is at the best level, what we can see is more people able to afford houses, the more demand for cement, steel, electricity, power, etc. gathering pace. And something we don't realize is that nearly 7% of our country's GDP consists of the housing sector. The housing sector contributes to 7%. Whereas in developed countries like the US, the UK, nearly 15% is from the housing sector. And for India, this will improve going forward. And also housing for all and the smart city concepts that the government has brought about will further increase this demand. And this is the perfect segue into the power segment. If you look, infra doesn't only mean construction. We have companies like GE Energy, we have companies like Cummins India, which is into power engines, which will benefit as construction and infrastructure gather space in the country. Now, looking at power, this is an estimate from the International Energy Agency, which is estimating that by 2040, our power demand will be double. And there is no other country in the world which will witness such a growth. And why is it expected to double? It's because industrial output and as they were mentioned, the more people coming into the middle class bracket, this will increase the GDP. And even after taking into account all the efficiencies associated with solar, associated with wind power and battery storage, the power demand is expected to double from here. And if you look at the dynamics, if you look at the particular power source, if we can see here from 2023 onwards, we can see that the coal source is on a terminal decline, whereas at the same time, battery storage, wind, nuclear, as well as solar will increase rapidly to be able to meet this demand. And further, I want to explain the left chart here. If you look at 2025 to 2030, it's the solar will increase, as I mentioned, and the demand for coal the installed capacity of coal would reduce. That means there will be a degeneration of the coal plant, and coal plant will stop functioning essentially from later on in the next decade. Now, if we go to the next slide, here we talk about chemicals. I'm sure that you must have heard of chemicals in the news. Investment managers talking about it is the best sector to be in. But this time, we just do not want to state that, but we want to break it down onto why we are seeing so much value in the chemical sector. Next slide. Firstly, if you look, you need chemicals for everything. There are chemicals even in the food that we eat to the fuel that we put in our cars. And as the economy grows, as the middle class comes in, there will be an increased demand for these chemicals. And of these chemicals, it is the specialty chemicals that we are investing in the most. And if you look at the industry demand, industry prospects here, the demand is expected to increase from $178 billion industry to a $300 billion industry, which shows us 11% CAGR growth. And we are investing to be a part of this 11% CAGR growth. And one of the largest factors of this 11% CAGR is not just the economic growth, is that the manufacturing units are switching from China to India. As we know, we've all heard of just-in-time manufacturing, but now companies are instead of just-in-time, they're switching to a just-in-case model as well. So they're trying to diversify their supply chain to India. And we think with this, we think it's going to be the next IT sector. And it's not the anti-China sentiments because of the COVID, etc. Even when the trade war started, the imports to the US from the China declined by 16% in FY19, whereas during the same time, the imports from India increased by 10%. This clearly shows that there is a significant demand from the chemical buyers to buy from India. Next slide. And here we can see, yes, the industry is definitely going to grow, but whether we come out as a trade deficit or a trade surplus will depend on the initiatives the government is taking. In the PLI schemes, we're seeing a minor allocation towards the chemical segment, not much. It's only in the advanced chemistry cell. But as we go forward, as Atmanirbhar gains momentum, we feel that the government initiatives will be very supportive and will come out with a trade surplus in 2030. Next slide. Overall, another thing I want to discuss is we see this as the IT sector. Back in 1990s, how the IT sector boomed, we see chemicals taking shape in a similar manner because we're seeing the base being the same, or everything working for the chemical sector. This is a very interesting chart. If you look at the chemical imports, nearly 66% of chemical imports to the US were from China in nearly 2017. But now coming into 2020 Q1, 2019 Q4, this has drastically reduced to nearly 56%. And who is to be take this? Who is the one who will take this opportunity? We definitely feel it's India. And if you look at it in terms of power, if you look in terms of labor, you look in terms of lending rates, India is certainly dominant and very investor friendly. And also, I want to expand on the previous point, is that in India's manufacturing labor cost is very low, and it should bring more FDIs into the chemical space. Next slide. And if you look at the different emerging markets here, emerging countries that's into manufacturing, if you compare it with South America, Africa, Middle East, India certainly has an advantage. The only thing we're lacking is the technology that we do not have. As we all know, we've seen this in front of our eyes, is that we are mostly manual, we're doing manual jobs. But as the technology comes in, because we have what it takes the most, we have the demographic, we have the low cost. And when the technology comes in to this equation, this is very supportive for the chemical industry altogether. Next slide. Next is textiles. This is a sector that we feel is very extremely undervalued among all the sectors because this is something that they do not talk about very often. If you look at textiles, India is the largest cotton producer in the world. Next slide. India is the largest cotton producer in the world, and we are competitive overall in raw material, the cotton, and in yarn. But when it comes to the later stages of value addition, like fabric manufacturing, like finished goods, like apparels and garments, we are very, very uncompetitive, and we are unorganized as a sector. And why is this? It's because of the power tariffs that we have for this in this textile industry and the lack of technology which we discussed before. Next slide. And just to cement my previous point, look at this. In the yarn sector, we are definitely competitive. We're just second to China in terms of market share and export value. But despite having this abundant raw material, despite being the largest producer of cotton, we are lagging behind US, Australia, China, and several other countries in fiber, in apparels, in home textiles, and fabric. Why is this? It's because of this reason stated previously, and this is certainly going to improve, and that's what we're investing in. And next slide. Yes. And if you look at the India's, these are the factors that manufacturers take into consideration before setting up a shop, before setting up a factory. If you look at the labor wages to all the way to lending rates and EODB ranking, this is well below the median in all the different segments, all the different criterias. And this will further help India gain a foothold in the textile industry, low manufacturing cost, essentially. Next slide. Yes, with all that, it is forecasted that Indian textile exports will grow by 11% CAGR, which is similar to chemicals that we have discussed earlier. And if you look at the major contributor, it is going to be the apparels and the home textiles. And now what are we doing with all this information? Is that, for example, textiles. We are finding companies that are currently playing very well in the yarn segment and are forward integrating. And we're also invested in companies in the portfolio that are currently into apparels and are backward integrating. So that in a way that we get exposure to the different value addition in the industry. Even in power, the one thing I had to mention was even in power, we are looking at power generators. We have companies that are into power generation. That we have companies that are into power distribution and even power engines in our portfolios. And now, lastly, Divam will discuss about the different portfolios that we have overall and the portfolios that we have with angel broking. Divam.
Thank you so much, Sriram.
Hey Divam, sorry to interrupt you. Can you take, Hindi while explaining small case portfolios which are offered by the Green Research, because so many of our viewers are actually looking for English, but however we did not presented the Hindi version, but we can cover this portfolio in Hindi. I think that would be pretty much good.
Sure, Sudhir.
Yeah.
तो हमारे जो स्मॉल केसेस हैं, हम लोग 5 स्मॉल केसेस ऑफर करते हैं ओवरऑल. विद एंजल वन हमारे जो स्मॉल केसेस हैं, हाई क्वालिटी राइट प्राइस. सो ये हमारा फ्लैगशिप स्मॉल केस है जहां पे हम लोग मल्टी बैगर अपॉर्चुनिटीज जो स्टॉक्स जो हमारे क्राइटेरियाज को फिट करते हैं कि कंपनी फंडामेंटली स्ट्रांग है, कंपनी की वैल्यूएशंस अच्छी हैं और वो कंपनीज अगले आने वाले 3 साल 4 साल में मल्टीप्लाई कर सकती हैं. यहाँ से हम ऐसे टाइप की कंपनीज इस पोर्टफोलियो में खरीदते हैं. एक पोर्टफोलियो में अराउंड 15 से 20 स्टॉक्स के आसपास रहते हैं एट अ पॉइंट इन टाइम. हम लोग हर 2 से 3 महीने में इन पोर्टफोलियोज को रीबैलेंस करते हैं. बीच में अगर हमें कभी ऐसा लगता है कि हमें पोर्टफोलियो को रीबैलेंस करना है, कोई ऐसी कोई इशू हो गया कंपनी के साथ कि हमें कंपनी को एग्जिट करना है, या फिर कंपनी की वैल्यूएशन एकदम से बहुत ज्यादा बढ़ गई है और वो एक्सीड कर गई है हमारी एक्सपेक्टेशंस को, तब हम एग्जिट कर जाते हैं उस स्टॉक से। तो हम रीबैलेंस बीच में भी कर लेते हैं, क्वार्टर के बीच में भी, लेकिन आइडियली हम लोग 3 महीने में एक बार रीबैलेंस करते हैं इस पोर्टफोलियो में। ये हमारा पीएमएस में भी हमारी फ्लैगशिप स्ट्रैटेजी है, ग्रीन पोर्टफोलियो स्पेशल, उससे इन्फ्लुएंस्ड है। हम लोग हर क्वार्टर हर कंपनी पे रिसर्च करते हैं, और इस पोर्टफोलियो में हम लोग ने, एज आप देख सकते हैं, हम लोग ने अराउंड 135% CAGR पिछले 1.5 साल में इस स्मॉल केस में दिया है। और इसके अलावा हमारा एक और ये हाई क्वालिटी राइट प्राइस मल्टी कैप स्ट्रैटेजी है। इसमें डिपेंडिंग ऑन द मार्केट अपॉर्चुनिटी, कभी अपॉर्चुनिटी अगर लार्ज कैप्स में अच्छी है, हम लोग लार्ज कैप्स में भी पोजीशन लेते हैं। अगर मिड कैप्स में अपॉर्चुनिटी अच्छी है तो मिड कैप्स में भी पोजीशन लेते हैं। आज की डेट में मिड कैप इंक्लाइंड पोर्टफोलियो है, बट मल्टी कैप पोर्टफोलियो है। और दूसरा जो पोर्टफोलियो है हमारा, दूसरा जो स्मॉल केस है, वो है स्मॉल कैप कंपाउंडर्स। सो इसी सेम फिलॉसफी के साथ जो हम हाई क्वालिटी राइट प्राइस में लेते हैं, सेम फिलॉसफी के साथ हम लोग स्मॉल कैप कंपाउंडर्स हमने बनाया है फॉर स्मॉल कैप स्टॉक्स। तो जो स्टॉक 2,000-2,500 करोड़ मार्केट कैप के नीचे के स्टॉक्स हैं, और जो सिमिलर टाइप के फंडामेंटली स्ट्रांग है, वैल्यूएशन अच्छी है, कंपनी अगले 3 साल 4 साल में डबल या उससे ज्यादा मतलब वेल्थ क्रिएट कर सकती है, और हम उन कंपनीज को रेगुलरली ट्रैक करते रहते हैं। तो इस पोर्टफोलियो में हम लोग अराउंड 15 वैसे स्टॉक्स खरीदते हैं जो जो स्मॉल कैप्स है और हमारी सिमिलर हाई क्वालिटी राइट प्राइस की फिलॉसफी से मैच करते हैं। दोनों में स्टॉक्स का ओवरलैप नहीं है, दोनों में स्टॉक्स अलग अलग है। उस स्मॉल कैप वाले में स्मॉल कैप्स ही है, और बाकी हाई क्वालिटी राइट प्राइस में मिड कैप इंक्लाइन एंड मल्टी कैप स्ट्रैटेजी है। सो इसके अलावा हम लोग एज एज स्मॉल केसेस हम लोग हाई डिविडेंड यील्ड प्लस कैपिटल एप्रिसिएशन स्मॉल केस भी है हमारा, जहां पे हम लोग हाई डिविडेंड यील्डिंग स्टॉक्स को खरीदते हैं विद विद ऐसी कंपनीज जो नॉन पीएसयूज हैं, जो रेगुलरली डिविडेंड अच्छे लेवल पे देती आई है, और उनकी उनके बिजनेसेस भी स्ट्रांग है, और वो बिजनेसेस ग्रो कर रहे हैं, तो उसमें फिर कैपिटल एप्रिसिएशन की भी अपॉर्चुनिटी आ जाती है। तो ये हमारा इस स्मॉल केस ने भी अराउंड 90% CAGR दिया है पिछले 1-1.5 साल में। इसके अलावा हमारा एक स्मार्ट निफ्टी इंडेक्स है, जहां पे निफ्टी में जैसे 50 स्टॉक्स हैं, तो उसमें से जो बेस्ट 20-25 स्टॉक्स हैं हम वो खरीदते हैं इस पोर्टफोलियो में। क्योंकि निफ्टी में यूजुअली हमने देखा है कि आउट ऑफ 50 स्टॉक्स सारे स्टॉक्स अच्छा नहीं करते एट ए पॉइंट इन टाइम। अगेन विद अ माइंडसेट ऑफ वेल्थ क्रिएशन एंड लॉन्ग टर्म इन्वेस्टमेंट, हम लोग वो 20-25 स्टॉक्स खरीदते हैं जो निफ्टी को कंसोलिडेटेड वे में आउट परफॉर्म कर सकते हैं। एक हमारा स्मॉल केस है मल्टी नेशनल कंपनीज एडवांटेज, एमएनसी एडवांटेज स्मॉल केस, जहां पे हम लोग एमएनसी कंपनीज में इन्वेस्ट करते हैं। तो एमएनसी कंपनीज यूजुअली मार्केट वैल्यू ज्यादा करता है, क्योंकि ये प्रोफेशनली रन होती हैं, इनको एक्सेस टू रिसोर्सेज ज्यादा होता है, चीपर एक्सेस, चीपर फंड्स का एक्सेस होता है, इनकी टेक्नोलॉजी R&D कैपेबिलिटीज बेटर होती है। तो ये कंपनीज में वैल्यूएशन यूजुअली थोड़ा हायर साइड में होता है, बिकॉज ऑफ ऑल दीज गुड फैक्टर्स। तो हम ट्राई करते हैं कि जो जो एमएनसी कंपनीज बहुत ज्यादा ओवर वैल्यूड नहीं है, जो राइटली वैल्यूड है, और जो अच्छी तरीके से ग्रो कर रही है, और हमारी सारी जो क्वालिटेटिव क्वांटिटेटिव पैरामीटर्स हैं उसको मीट कर रही हैं, हम वो 15-20 स्टॉक्स इस पोर्टफोलियो में खरीदते हैं। एंड अगेन ये हमने 6 महीने पहले ये स्मॉल केस लॉन्च किया था। हालांकि पीएमएस में हमारा ये स्ट्रैटेजी हम लोग ऑपरेट करते हैं, बट ये स्मॉल केस में वी गॉट अराउंड 38% CAGR ओवर द लास्ट 38% रिटर्न्स ओवर द लास्ट 6 मंथ्स। तो ये हमारे 5 स्मॉल केसेस हैं। और ओवर टू यू सुधीर, वी कैन टेक अप क्वेश्चंस नाउ।
Sure. Thank you, Divam. So, couple of questions that we have received. First thing first, one of our viewer is asking how to find the management is good or bad for a company. I mean, the management of a company is really good or bad as a part of fundamental analysis. Yeah.
Anuj, would you want to take this?
Yes, Divam. Yes, hi everyone.
We can
So,
speak in Hindi. We can speak in Hindi.
okay, okay. So फंडामेंटली स्ट्रॉन्ग कंपनी मतलब किसी कंपनी कोई कंपनी फंडामेंटली स्ट्रॉन्ग है कि नहीं है इज हाईली सब्जेक्टिव मैटर. इट्स नंबर आपको सजेस्ट कर सकते हैं, नंबर आपको इंडिकेटर्स प्रोवाइड करा सकते हैं, बट numbers I don't think are sufficient and are the only factors in deciding whether a company fundamentally strong है कि नहीं है. Because fundamentally strong क्या होगा, आप अगर आप किसी कंपनी में इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हो तो इट इज एज गुड एज कि आप उसके मालिकों को पैसा दे रहे हो कि भाई आप इसको यूज करो. तो आप किसी आदमी को पैसा तब दोगे जब वो इंटेग्रिटी का आदमी होगा. अब कोई कितना इंटेग्रिटी का आदमी है वो तो किसी को दिमाग, किसी को वो हिंदी फिल्म का गाना है कि वो किताबें बहुत सी पढ़ी होंगी तुमने मगर कोई चेहरा तुमने पढ़ा है. तो वो तो मतलब हाईली सब्जेक्टिव है. लेकिन ये हाईली सब्जेक्टिव है और चेहरा पढ़ने जैसा है, बट स्टिल जैसा हिंदी में कहावत है पूत के पाँव पालने में दिखाई दे जाते हैं, वैसे ही एक कंपनी फंडामेंटली स्ट्रांग है कि नहीं है, मैनेजमेंट इंटेग्रिटी की है कि नहीं है, प्रोफेशनल है कि नहीं है, उसके भी सारे सिम्टम्स, सारे इंडिकेटर्स अवेलेबल हैं. अगर कंपनी की प्रोमोटर्स की साउंड इंटेग्रिटी के सिम्टम अगर अवेलेबल नहीं है तो प्रोमोटर्स के मिसडीड के सिम्टम जरूर अवेलेबल है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल एक कंपनी में एक हाइपोथेटिकल एग्जाम्पल लेता हूँ, रियल एग्जाम्पल से भी लिंक कर सकता हूँ इसको. जैसे कोई कंपनी है उसमें प्रमोटर स्टेक लगातार घट रही है, तो वो कहीं ना कहीं प्रमोटर का लैक ऑफ कॉन्फिडेंस दिखाती है. एक कंपनी है जहां प्रमोटर स्टेक लगातार बढ़ रही है तो वो कहीं ना कहीं प्रमोटर का कॉन्फिडेंस लेवल दिखाती है टुवर्ड्स द कंपनी एंड द फ्यूचर. ठीक है, कहीं पे अगर मान लीजिए कंपनी के बुक्स में डेट नहीं है लेकिन प्रमोटर प्लेज बढ़ रही है, दैट मीन्स कि प्रमोटर पर्सनल लेवल पे कहीं पे ट्रबल में है, क्योंकि उनको अपनी अपनी यू विल नॉट, आप अपने कंपनी की अपने फैमिली के सिल्वर को कब गिरवी रखोगे, व्हेन यू आर इन फॉर सम रियल ट्रबल. कंटिजेंट लाइबिलिटी फॉर एग्जांपल, कंटिजेंट लाइबिलिटी कैन गिव यू अ वेरी गुड आइडिया एज टू व्हाट इज गोइंग ऑन देयर. एक मैं छोटा सा एग्जांपल देता हूं, मैं अपनी रिसर्च टीम के साथ भी कभी डिस्कस किया था इसको. इट इज नॉट ऑल्सो अबाउट मेटीरियलिटी. हो सकता है कि वो जो आपको इंडिकेटर दिखाई दे रहा है वो अमाउंट वाइज मटेरियल ना हो. फॉर एग्जांपल अ बैलेंस शीट ऑफ 1000 करोड़ and there is a penalty of 10,000 rupees towards pollution from pollution control board. So 10,000 rupees on a balance sheet of 1,000 crore is insignificant. वो ज्यादा significant नहीं है, you may choose to ignore it. लेकिन अगर मैं आपको बताऊं कि ऐसी 10,000 रुपए की पेनल्टी साल में 5 बार लग चुकी है उस कंपनी के ऊपर जिसका साइज 1,000 करोड़ है बैलेंस शीट का, तो अगर 5 बार लग चुकी है दैट मीन्स 50,000 रुपीज ऑन अ बैलेंस शीट ऑफ 1,000 करोड़. अगर अमाउंट वाइज देखे तो स्टिल इनसिग्निफिकेंट है, लेकिन ये मैनेजमेंट के चरित्र को दिखाती है. इट शोज द कैरेक्टर ऑफ द मैनेजमेंट बिकॉज एज दैट दे आर नॉट सीरियस. वो सीरियस नहीं है किसके प्रति, एनवायरमेंट के प्रति, सस्टेनेबिलिटी के प्रति. एंड मे बी इस तरीके के लोग बहुत लंबे समय तक सस्टेन नहीं करेंगे. हो सकता है कोई ऐसा मैटर निकल के आए आज इन छोटे छोटे इग्नोरेंस के कारण, कल को कोई ऐसा बड़ा मैटर निकल के आ जाए कि कंपनी को शट डाउन करना पड़े. तो अगर आप सीरियस नहीं हो, अगर आप लॉन्ग टर्म प्लेयर नहीं हो, तो इस तरीके की चीजें होंगी. तो दीज आर जस्ट इंडिकेटर. देयर कुड बी 1000 मोर थिंग्स जो कि फंडामेंटली स्ट्रांग है या नहीं है उसको डिटरमिन करेगी, बट दिस इज जस्ट एन आइडिया. आई मीन इसके ऊपर मतलब पूरी 1000 पेज की बुक भी लिख दोगे तो शायद कम पड़ेगी.
करेक्ट. राइट. थैंक यू सो मच अनुज. So next question is in green portfolio case, most of the rebalancing as a quarterly basis पे है. So why not on the weekly basis as equity market condition changes so quickly?
तो हमारा जो थॉट प्रोसेस है, सी हम लोग लॉन्ग टर्म इन्वेस्टिंग करते हैं और कंपनी की इनके फाइनेंशियल्स, कंपनी की फ्यूचर प्रोस्पेक्ट्स को देख के करते हैं लॉन्ग टर्म इन्वेस्टिंग. तो हर हफ्ते अगर हम रीबैलेंस करेंगे तो मतलब हम लोग एक तरह से ट्रेडिंग कर रहे हैं. तो हमारा जो स्टाइल ऑफ इन्वेस्टिंग है, वेल्थ क्रिएशन है थ्रू लॉन्ग टर्म इन्वेस्टिंग इनटू मार्केट्स. तो इसीलिए हम हालांकि ऑन अ रेगुलर बेसिस हर कंपनी को डेली बेसिस पे हम ट्रैक करते हैं, उसकी परफॉर्मेंस को ट्रैक करते हैं. हम ये देखते हैं कि उसके फंडामेंटल्स तो चेंज नहीं हो रहे. इंस्टेड ऑफ फ्रीक्वेंटली चेंजिंग द पोर्टफोलियो, हर हफ्ते हम पोर्टफोलियो को चेंज करते जा रहे हैं, उससे ज्यादा हम लोग कंपनी को स्टडी करते रहते हैं रेगुलर बेसिस पे. और जहां पे हमें लगता है कि उसके फंडामेंटल्स चेंज हुए हैं और इतने सिग्निफिकेंटली चेंज हुए कि हमें उस स्टॉक से एग्जिट करना चाहिए या उस स्टॉक को रीबैलेंस करना चाहिए, देन वी कम अप विद अ रीबैलेंस इन बिटवीन आल्सो. लेकिन हम हमारा आइडियल टाइम ऑफ इन्वेस्टिंग इज मोर देन 1 ईयर. अगर आप 1 साल से ज्यादा इन्वेस्ट करना चाहते हैं तो हमें ये लगता है कि शॉर्ट टर्म में मार्केट में मूवमेंट्स हो सकते हैं, कोई भी इवेंट हो सकता है, शॉर्ट टर्म इवेंट, बट लॉन्ग टर्म में जब आपकी कंपनी के फंडामेंटल्स मैटर करते हैं, आप कितनी वेल्थ बनाएंगे मार्केट से। तो
राइट
अगर आपके कंपनी के फंडामेंटल्स अच्छे हैं तो शॉर्ट टर्म इवेंट्स बहुत ज्यादा मैटर नहीं करते आपको। तो हम लोग इसलिए लॉन्ग टर्म और इतनी फ्रीक्वेंटली रिबैलेंस नहीं करते जो वीकली आप बोल रहे हैं।
correct sir. Thank you so much. Another thing is, what is the difference between HQRP, high quality, right price, small case, and the small case compounder, which is present on Angel One platform?
तो जैसे मैंने बताया था, दोनों में फर्क ये है कि स्मॉल कैप कंपाउंडर्स हम स्मॉल कैप में ही इन्वेस्ट करता है। फिलॉसफी दोनों में सेम है। स्मॉल कैप कंपाउंडर्स में स्मॉल कैप्स है। हमें ऐसा लगा कि ब्रॉडर मार्केट बहुत ज्यादा अपॉर्चुनिटीज प्रेजेंट कर रहा है इन टर्म्स ऑफ वैल्यूएशन एंड इन टर्म्स ऑफ इन्वेस्टमेंट एंड वेल्थ क्रिएशन। तो हम लोग ने स्मॉल कैप कंपाउंडर्स की स्कीम लॉन्च करी जो 2,500 करोड़ की मार्केट कैप के नीचे वाली कंपनीज में इन्वेस्ट करता है। और हाई क्वालिटी राइट प्राइस, अगेन फंडामेंटली स्ट्रॉन्ग कंपनीज, वेल्थ क्रिएशन माइंडसेट, बट वो मल्टी कैप स्ट्रैटेजी है। करेंटली उसका फोकस मोर टुवर्ड्स मिड कैप्स है, बट वो मल्टी कैप स्ट्रैटेजी है। जब हमें लार्ज कैप में अपॉर्चुनिटी दिखेगी तो लार्ज कैप भी होंगे पोर्टफोलियो में, हमें मिड कैप में दिखेगी या स्मॉल कैप में दिखेगी तो वो भी होंगे। और दोनों स्ट्रैटेजीज में ओवरलैप नहीं है।
Right. That's an interesting point. I think that helps a lot. Uh, Next question that I would like to pick here. What would be the best suited product for the senior citizen? I mean, कोई अगर रिटायर्ड हो चुका है आफ्टर 60 years, if they are interested to invest money, तो आपका क्या व्यू है, where they can park their money for growth purpose?
Sir, if your idea is capital protection or if it is growth, so sir, अगर आप from markets, from our experience, what we feel is, अगर आप मार्केट्स में इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं, ऐसा नहीं है कि आप पैसा लूज करेंगे। अगर आप लंबी अवधि के लिए इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं, जैसे आप 2 साल 3 साल के लिए इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं एंड आप एक एलोकेशन कर रहे हैं आप अपने इक्विटीज में इन आर स्मॉल केसेस, तो आप वेल्थ जरूर बनाएंगे। आपको जो कैपिटल या कैश की जरूरत पड़ सकती है, उस अमाउंट को आप अपने पास लिक्विड फॉर्म में रखिए, बी इट इनटू लिक्विड फंड्स और सेफ डेट और फिक्स्ड इनकम सिक्योरिटीज में रखिए। और जो आपको कैपिटल और जो कुछ एलोकेशन आप इक्विटीज में रखिए विद अ लॉन्ग टर्म माइंडसेट। और एसआईपी करते जाइए रेगुलरली। जब भी आपको अपॉर्चुनिटी लगे, आपको लगे कि मार्केट थोड़ा सा गिर गया, थोड़ा सा कैपिटल और एलोकेट कर दीजिए। और साथ में एक बफर रखिए जो लिक्विड आपके फंड्स में रहेगा या फिक्स्ड इनकम सिक्योरिटीज में रहेगा, जो आपकी इन्फ्लेशन को बीट करने में हेल्प कर सके। और आपको जब भी पैसा निकालना हो, आप उस लिक्विड बफर से आप निकाल सके।
Right. Thank you. So one question is popping up more than once. So what return I can expect from green portfolio, small cap multi-bagger in next 3 to 5 years?
That this is very difficult to comment, but over the last मतलब जैसे अगर आप पिछले 3 साल की बात करें, तो हमारे पिछले 3 साल में तो रिटर्न्स मतलब बहुत अच्छे, पिछले 1 डेढ़ साल में आप देख सकते हैं बहुत ज्यादा रिटर्न्स है। बट हम कंसिस्टेंट बेसिस पे हम मान के चलते हैं कि आप 15 से 20% आप एक्सपेक्टेशन रखिए। हम अपनी तरफ से एक्सपेक्टेशन रखते हैं कि हम 20 से 25% की आपको रिटर्न दे, इफ यू इन्वेस्ट फॉर अ 3 to 5 years टाइम होराइजन।
Correct. Thank you so much. Is there any subscription coupon that you guys provide for new subscriber? I think so many viewers have asked for that. कि कुछ कूपन कोड मिलता है क्या नए सब्सक्राइबर को ग्रीन पोर्टफोलियो की तरफ से?
तो एक काम कर सकते हैं हम लोग, ये कूपन कोड एक कुछ क्रिएट करा के हम लोग यही कमेंट सेक्शन में डाल सकते हैं, ताकि जो सब्सक्राइब करना चाहते हैं वो उस कूपन कोड से सब्सक्राइब कर लें।
Right. Okay. I think we have finished all the questionnaires. That was really great insight. I think Divam and Sri Ram, you guys have really covered everything from sectorial analysis till the global economy, Indian economy, China, हर सेक्टर में क्या हो रहा है, कैसे आपको डिसीजन लेना है. That was really great and insightful information. There were brilliant research. I think our viewers as well as the Angel One users are absolutely going to basically enjoy this, and I am pretty much sure this is also going to help them in making a better investment decision making. So thank you all, and thank you Divam for joining us today, and thank you to your team also for coming us and giving us such a beautiful webinar.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a good day. Bye bye.